Welcome to the Organized Investor Show right here on News Talk 98.7, folks. And thank you for tuning in again today. I'm Erik, Ainge, your host. And I've got my fantastic crew here with me in studio. We got Megan Hubbard. She's here, the Dean of College Knowledge for us. She used to be a first grade teacher at CAK and once told me confiscating a box of crayons from a 6-year-old was the scariest thing she ever did until she worked with her dad, Jerry Goodman, dad. In the house, 43 years of financial planning experience, 17 of those at Merrill Lynch as the vice president. And if you've heard this show before, you know Jerry does not sugarcoat a single thing. And my beautiful wife, Susan Ainge, with us, grinding away studying her Series 7 securities exam, which means she asks tougher questions than the defensive coordinators I used to face in the NFL. Susan actually quizzed me on some security stuff over dinner.
How'd you do?
I got over half of them wrong, so I felt pretty good about it. But yeah, I got a long ways to go myself. Today, we're tackling a subject that most people avoid like a root canal, and that's estate planning. The conversation nobody wants to have, but I promise you by the end of the show today, you're going to understand why this conversation could save your family hundreds of thousands of dollars and a whole lot of heartache.
And Erik, you are so right. This really is the conversation nobody wants to have. So we're here to help you organize your investments, your retirement, and your affairs. And while all three are important, your investments are the only one of the three that can materially improve your financial future. So, Megan, you want to go ahead and share some numbers that matter to every single listener?
For calendar year 2025, our average client return was 36.3%, and that is net of all fees and costs. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was up 13% during that same period, which is a difference of over 23 percentage points. Over 3 years, our average annual return has been 19.3% compared to 13.2% for the Dow. Over 5 years, 13.3% annually versus 9.4% for the Dow, and over 7 years, 16.7% annually versus 10.1% for the Dow.
Now, those numbers are net of fees and costs and posted on the organizedinvestor.com for anybody to look at and to verify. Now, there are actually 198 individual client accounts listed alongside their last 4 digits of each account number because we believe in total transparency. And folks, let me underline that point because it's very important. Past performance is never guaranteed, but that kind of consistency over 7 years, it doesn't happen just by accident, okay? There is a method behind the results, and that's what separates us from the rest of the industry.
One thing that really jumped out to me is how the industry emphasizes compliance and procedures, but does very little to track and report actual performance results. It's like, hey, we care how you do it, don't care how you do. What? Advisors are held accountable for following rules, but not whether their advice actually works. You can follow every regulation perfectly and still underperform for your clients for decades, and the system doesn't seem to care. That is a fundamental disconnect that hurts everyday investors, and that is one of the biggest reasons these performance numbers matter so much. Jerry and Jared are not hiding behind the process. They're showing you the scoreboard, and the scoreboard doesn't lie.
When you go to our website and see 198 accounts with the last 4 digits of their account numbers and their actual returns, that's a level of transparency you just don't see in this industry. So let me explain how we achieve those kind of results, because this is not luck, folks. It's method and it's discipline. There are 3 drivers behind what Jerry and Jared do every single day. The first driver is lower advisory fees, about 0.25% less than what most advisors charge, and that adds up year after year after year after year.
After year.
The second driver is that they avoid mutual funds and ETFs that carry hidden internal costs, eating away at your returns every single year without you even knowing about it.
And the third driver is selective stock investing, owning quality individual companies instead of thousands of companies through a cookie-cutter fund portfolio. Most advisors put your money into 15 to 20 different mutual funds, which means you end up owning thousands of individual companies, including the losers, the zombies, and the companies that are barely surviving. They call that diversification, because instead of diversification making things better, it actually makes your performance worse. And when that over-diversification leads to mediocre returns, we call it diversiperformance. Yeah, they make up words around here like this, but, they stick with people because they describe something real that's happening inside most portfolios, and you don't even realize it.
And Megan, when you say cookie cutter fund portfolios, here's what that actually looks like for real people. If your advisor has you in 15 or 20 mutual funds, and each one of those funds owns several hundred stocks, you probably own 3,000 or 4,000 of these different companies, okay? You've got some star performers in there for sure, but you're also carrying a lot of dead weight, and the returns are going to suffer because of it. So you're not going to order everything on the menu at a restaurant, so why would you want to own every stock on the planet? Think of it this way. You're not going to try to build a football team by signing every recruit that visits the campus, are you?
Alabama did not win all those championships that way. Georgia's not winning championships that way. It's not how you build wealth either. The great programs are incredibly selective about who makes the roster, and that's exactly what Jerry and Jared are doing, building portfolios. The alternative to diversification is owning individual dividend growth stocks from the Wells Fargo DSIP list. The DSIP stands for Diversified Stock Income Plan. These are companies you actually know and understand. Companies like Costco, Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, General Dynamics, Smuckers. Lowe's, for example, has raised its dividend every year over 60 consecutive years. Whoa.
Just think about that. Through recessions, market crashes, wars, and pandemics, 60 consecutive years of dividend increases. That kind of consistency doesn't happen by accident. It happens because these companies are exceptionally well managed. The DSIP list has a 30-year track record averaging over 12% annually, and because investors view these companies as stable and well managed, their stock prices tend to hold up better during downturns.
When the overall market drops 20%, these quality companies might only drop 10 or 12%, and the downside protection matters enormously for people approaching or already in retirement with that. And that is exactly the kind of investing I wish I had understood 20 years ago, but the simplicity of it is what makes it so powerful.
Buy great companies, collect growing dividends, and let time do the heavy lifting. That 2% annual improvement sounds small when you say it fast, but let me put it in real dollar terms. On $1 million portfolio, 2% per year is an extra $20,000 annually. But here's where the compound interest becomes your best friend. Over 20 years, that extra 2% compounds to $485,000 of additional wealth.
That is a vacation home. That is your grandchildren's college paid for. That is the difference between a nervous retirement and a comfortable one. All from something you might initially dismiss at just 2%. And on top of that steady DSIP strategy, when the market overreacts, the team takes advantage of what they call bargain opportunities.
Bargains.
During COVID in 2020, we bought hotels, restaurants, airlines, cruise lines, and everyone else was panicking. Most advisors froze because their clients were stuck in mutual funds and there was literally nothing they could do. During the tariff scare in the spring of 2025, we made over 12,500 trades in a single day, moving money from DSIP stocks that had not dropped much into companies that were temporarily beaten down. In fact, we're in the midst of bargain opportunity number 4 and have been buying companies that went down sharply in price over fears of AI disruptions.
And if the analysts that follow that stock think it's worth $150 and it's say 100, that's a 50% upside potential mathematically. So we just bought a number of companies whose average upside potential is about 60%. Pretty impressive. That average market capitalization of those companies is over $250 billion. And if they move back to their high prices of the year, it actually is a 100% increase. Now, this kind of flexibility, it is simply impossible if you're locked in a bunch of mutual funds. And that's one of the major reasons why our track record looks like it does. Obviously, we said it before, past performance doesn't guarantee future results. But if you want to understand why our returns are so much better than other advisors are, well, this is why, okay? And for anyone listening who wants to learn more about all this in person, we actually host a free monthly organized investor workshop. We'd love to have you join us. It's held once a month, 6 o'clock at Chesapeake's on Parkside Drive. You've probably been there before. Great restaurant. And there's no cost to attend, but seating is limited, so you need to make some reservations in order to save you a spot.
And to reserve your spot, visit the workshops page at theorganizedinvestor.com or call 865-415-2058. You will receive a 60-page workbook, a delicious meal, maybe some adult beverages, and a full explanation of how to get a complete package of estate planning documents from Trust and Will, all without cost or obligation. One lucky person is going to get a full-size Tennessee autograph ball from me. The hosts of the event are myself, my wife, Susan, Megan and Jared Hubbard, Jerry Goodman and Amber DeLong, that's the whole Tennessee Wealth Management team. Now, let me tell you about the 4 things that we're offering to every single listener. And I love this part because there is no catch, there is no fine print, and absolutely no obligation, just freebies.
First, a free Morningstar report on your current investments with a plain English breakdown so you actually know what you own, what you are paying in hidden fees, and how you are really performing. Second, a free retirement cash flow analysis so you can see whether you are actually on track for the retirement lifestyle that you want. Third, free estate planning documents through our partnership with Trust and Will, and that includes wills, trusts, powers of attorneys, and healthcare directives. Fourth, a signed Tennessee football from number 10, Erik Ainge, for every household that comes in. That is 4 get one frees. No buy ones.
Yes, call 865-415-2070 and ask for Jerry's Ask Me Anything in 20 Minutes phone call. That is the easiest first step you can take, and you will know within 20 minutes whether we can help you. Now let us dive into today's main topic, because estate planning is one of the most neglected aspects of financial planning, and the consequences of ignoring it are devastating. Well over half the people we sit down with who are within 5 years of retirement do not even have a basic estate planning document. No power of attorney, no health directive, nothing.
People avoid this topic because it forces them to think about things that they really don't like to think about, like getting sick or not being around to watch their grandkids grow up. But avoiding it doesn't make the problem go away, does it? It just makes the consequences so much worse for people who you actually love the most. You know, it's kind of like going to the dentist. Nobody wants to go, but if you wait too long, a simple filling turns into, say, a root canal. It costs 10 times as much and twice as much fun, isn't it? And the statistics back this up, and it's really in a very sobering way.
According to David Gardner of The Motley Fool, 70% of all efforts to transition wealth to the next generation fail. 70%. That money either disappears or their heirs lose control of it, and often it's not through their own fault. It's because the parents did not do it right. So let us show you how to finally organize your affairs without any cost or obligation with the help of our online partner, Trust and Will. We can get you a complete set of documents for your family without any cost or obligation. We have an unlimited annual subscription to Trust and Will, and we're offering to help you with it just for being a listener. And again, don't make any money doing this. This is just something that we're offering you.
And for everybody that's still wondering about this, it is free. F-R-E-E.
Wait, free?
I think it's
Free.
free.
No,
Eric.
free.
I think free is in the menu here.
Free. And again, we're here to help you organize your investments, your retirement, and your affairs. And while each of those 3 things are all important, the only one that may materially improve your long-term financial future would be your investments.
Cha-ching.
And that is why we spend most of our time on how your investments are being managed and also how your taxes are being managed.
We have seen families where the parents worked their entire lives. They saved diligently, never went on extra vacations, never enjoyed their money, all to leave their money to their children. And because of poor tax planning, those children ended up paying 30 to 40% in taxes on their inheritance. Instead of receiving $1 million, they got $600,000. Can you imagine the look on mom and dad's face if they knew that almost half their life savings went to taxes because nobody helped them with a plan? I'm sure at that point they would have been wishing that they had actually gone on those vacations.
They drove used cars. They skipped the vacations. They clipped coupons for 40 years. Also, their kids could have a better life. And the system rewarded that sacrifice with a 40% tax bill because nobody bothered to show them a better way. And what makes that even more painful is that the kids often shrug their shoulders because to them, $600,000 still feels like they won the lottery. But the parents sacrificed, they saved, they went without, and they never enjoyed the money during their lives. The tax burden did not hit until both parents passed away, so the parents never see the consequences of their lack of planning. Got to get prepared.
That money changed hands unnecessarily, and it happens every single day in this country. A proper tax strategy can help to get that money out at 10 or 15% instead of 40. We are talking about keeping $850,000 versus $600,000, and that is a $250,000 difference for the family. That is real money, folks, and it's sitting on the table for anyone who is willing to have this conversation and just take action. And if your financial advisor has never talked to you about a tax map, about Roth conversions, about the widow's penalty or the kiddo's penalty, That should tell you something.
A comprehensive retirement plan includes investments, tax planning, estate planning, and long-term care planning. If your advisor is only talking about investments, they are missing most of what matters on the downhill side of retirement. And here's the part that really frustrates me as I learn more about this industry. The IRA is the largest liability most people have in retirement. Your house is paid off, your cars are paid off, but $1 million IRA could carry up to a $400,000 tax liability.
If your advisor says just wait until 73 to start taking those withdrawals, basically that's Uncle Sam's plan, not yours. Uncle Sam is not in the business of wanting less money in taxes, and neither is the advisor who's charging you a percentage of the assets, because the bigger your IRA stays, the more they get paid. And that just doesn't really pass the smell test.
Do I pass the smell test? Don't answer that.
No.
Don't answer that. Babe, I think about estate planning the way that I think about a playbook. Shocker. In football, the playbook is not just for the head coach. It's for the entire coaching staff, the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, position coaches, the trainers, everybody on the team, players, obviously. If only one person knows the plays and that person goes down, the whole team is lost on the field and they have no chance of winning. That's exactly what happens in families where only one spouse handles the finances and there are no documents in place. Both spouses need to understand the full financial picture. That starts with having the right estate planning documents. We're offering them for free. When we come back, we're going to dig deeper into the specific documents you need, some incredible stories about what happens when people do not have them, and a framework called ABCD. No E, just ABCD. It'll change how you think about protecting your family forever. Stay with us, folks. You're listening to the Organized Investor Show right here on News Talk 98.7.
Want to meet the team from the Organized Investor in person? Join us at a free Organized Investor workshop. You'll get a 60-page workbook, a great meal, and learn how to get free estate planning documents through our partner Trust and Will. Our next workshop is Tuesday, March 24th at 6 p.m. at Chesapeake's Restaurant on Parkside Drive in West Knoxville. There's no cost or obligation to attend. However, seating is limited. So reserve your spot at theorganizedinvestor.com or call 865-415-2058. That's 865-415-2058. Erik Ainge is the host of The Erik Ainge Show on 99.1 The Sports Animal, weekdays from 9 to noon. Erik, his wife Susan, Megan Hubbard, and Jerry Goodman are all affiliated with Tennessee Wealth Management and Prospera Financial Services in Dallas.
All right, calm down. We're back. It's the Organized Investor Show brought to you by Tennessee Wealth Management. It's me, Ainge, alongside my wife, Susan Ainge, Megan Hubbard, and Jerry Goodman from Tennessee Wealth Management. Before the break, we introduced today's theme, estate planning, the conversation that no one wants to have. We shared some important numbers. Those numbers, 36.3% net return 2025 versus the Dow at 13%. That's what Tennessee Wealth Management did for the 198 accounts that we have. Over 3, 5, 7 years through lower fees. How do we do that? Lower fees, avoiding expensive mutual funds, and selective investing with the DSIP dividend growth stocks and those bargain opportunities. We talked about the parents who lost nearly half their life savings to taxes because nobody helped them plan, and we introduced the 4 free offers to every single listener. Now, let us get into the specific tools and documents that can protect your family.
One of the most powerful frameworks I have learned from working alongside estate planning attorneys is the ABCD framework. And if you don't know, A stands for assets, B for beneficiaries, C for creditors, and D for divorce. Everything in estate planning ultimately comes down to protecting your assets and beneficiaries from creditors and divorce. People spend their entire lives building wealth, and then they leave the door wide open for creditors, lawsuits, or an ex-spouse to just walk off with a huge chunk of it.
With divorce rates north of 50% in this country, this is not some unlikely what-if scenario. This is a very real and very common threat to your family's financial legacy. I love this framework because it takes something that feels, overwhelming or breaks it down into 4 letters that anyone can remember. When you're sitting around the kitchen table with your spouse trying to figure out where to start, just ask yourself, are our assets protected? Are our beneficiaries protected? And are they both protected from creditors and divorce?
If the answer to any of those is no, or maybe I'm not even sure, that's your starting point. And here's where it really gets practical for everyone listening. Think of estate planning as in 2 buckets. The documents you need to basically affect your life while you're still alive, and the documents you need to affect your life when you're gone. Both buckets are equally important, but most people don't have either one of them filled up properly.
The basics are non-negotiable. A healthcare power of attorney, a financial power of attorney, and a living will are three completely separate documents, and all three operate while you are alive. A will operates after you pass away. The goal is to have everything activated through powers of attorney, so you never need guardianship or probate court, because guardianship is what happens when you did not plan ahead. It is a legal process through the court system that costs thousands of dollars versus the $50 to $100 for a power of attorney document.
And once the court grants guardianship, the court is effectively the guardian, not the family. And the court can overrule what the family knows the loved one would have wanted. There's no privacy in guardianship either. Everything is public record.
Ooh.
Every financial decision has to be audited by the court. It is two separate processes: guardianship of the person for healthcare decisions and guardianship of finances. And both are expensive and time-consuming.
A lot of times when people go into a nursing home, the family could make strategic transfers and gifts if they have the right powers of attorney. But without those documents, they're stuck in a spin down where you basically lose all your money because $10,000 a month goes pretty quick. And here's something that surprises a lot of people, because most folks just assume this is automatically handled. Spouses do not automatically have authority to make healthcare or financial decisions for an incapacitated partner just because they have been married for 50 years. That is a huge misconception. So children don't have the authority just because they are a child either. So you have to really pay attention to these things and make sure you have these documents in place.
Without healthcare and financial powers of attorney in place, you need this guardianship that goes through the courts. It's expensive, invasive, completely public process where everything basically must be audited and there's zero privacy. Anybody over 18 years old should basically have these kinds of powers of attorney, period, no exceptions. I've heard stories from families where the nursing home is the one asking the tough questions. Do you have a power of attorney? Do you have a guardianship? The family has no idea what these terms even mean.
Well, and by that point, the family's already in crisis mode, already emotional, and now they have to navigate the legal system on top of everything else. Let me tell you a story from an estate planning attorney that really brings this home in a powerful way. A client's parents had been gifting money to their grandchildren for college every single year, just doing what loving grandparents do, making sure those kids could go to school without a mountain of debt.
But here's the problem. There is no financial power of attorney in place because, well, nobody thought to set one up. When the parents became incapacitated, the adult child went to court seeking guardianship so they could continue the gifting program that the parents had been doing for years. Well, and the court denied it, ruling it was not in the parents' best financial interest to give the money away.
A $50 to $100 document, one simple power of attorney, would have prevented thousands of dollars in legal costs and preserved what the family wanted. In football, you would call that an unforced error, like fumbling the ball on the 1-yard line with the game on the line. The heartbreaking part is that it didn't have to happen that way, and a tiny amount of preparation would have prevented the whole disaster. And Tim's story is not an isolated case. It's not even close. When estate planning attorneys, started reviewing families who came in for help, they estimated that 75% of the clients who said they had a trust actually had an unfunded one.
They would walk in and say, I have a trust, feeling good about themselves, basically having checked that box, but nothing was in it. No assets retitled, no house transferred into it, no car, no bank accounts were basically moved into that trust. An unfunded trust means everything still goes through probate exactly as the trust had not even existed, okay? You paid an attorney to create this beautiful document that sits in the drawer and does absolutely nothing.
That doesn't seem smart. It's like buying a state-of-the-art alarm system for your house and never turning it on, right? I mean, the equipment's there, but the protection is not. Funding the trust means going to the DMV, doing title work, moving bank accounts, and there is no running list inside the trust. Funding the trust means going to the DMV, doing title work, moving bank accounts, and there is no running list inside the trust. It is tracked by the retitling of each individual asset. This is why comprehensive planning matters so much, and it's why we do not just manage investments, we coordinate the entire picture. That alarm system analogy is perfect because it captures exactly what we see every day, right, at Tennessee Wealth Management. People feel protected because they went through the motions, but nobody checked to make sure the system was actually on and actually working.
And that's what a second opinion is for. It's why we offer this free estate planning review through Trust and Will. And while we're talking about things people assume are fine, but actually are not, let me briefly circle back to the investment side for just a second, okay? Our 36.3% net return for 2025, it happened because of a very disciplined strategy with 3 simple drivers: lower fees, no hidden mutual fund costs, and selective investing in very high quality companies. On a $1 million portfolio, that 2% annual improvement that we shoot for, that equals about $20,000 per year, compounded over 20 years. That is equivalent to $485,000 of additional wealth. And that's not luck, folks, it's method. And those extra dollars give you much more to protect through the proper estate planning and more to pass through to your family.
I know past performance does no guarantee of future results or anything, but last year it was a whole lot more than 2%. And over 7 years, a whole lot more than 2%.
The DSIP dividend growth stocks are the foundation. So companies like Costco, Walmart, and Lowe's that have been raising their dividends for decades. And when the bargain opportunities arise, like the 12,500 trades during the tariff scare, the team has the flexibility to act immediately because they're not locked inside those mutual funds. Just this past week, the team purchased 15 software companies at about 1% each in client accounts. Names like Microsoft, Oracle, Adobe, and ServiceNow. The average market capitalization of these 15 stocks is $278 billion. And the consensus analyst price target implies an average upside potential of over 70%. That is the kind of opportunistic investing that a mutual fund just simply cannot do.
And that is a huge competitive advantage because while other advisors are sitting on their hands waiting for a committee to approve a trade, Jerry and Jared, my husband, are already in and out. Speed matters when the market gives you a window, and that window does not stay open very long, okay? And I want to remind everyone listening that we hold a free monthly Organized Investor workshop at Chesapeake's Restaurant on Parkside Drive in Knoxville at 6 p.m. There's no cost to attend whatsoever, but seating is limited, so you do need a reservation. You can visit the workshop's page at theorganizedinvestor.com, or you can call us at 865-415-2058 to save your seat.
All right, and you're going to get a 60-page workbook, a wonderful meal, a full explanation of how to access free estate planning documents through Trust and Will. Plus, again, one lucky attendee gets that Tennessee football signed by me, and you get to hang out with us. Come on. Now, here's something we will share with you. It's called the Thanksgiving Day Promise. If you want your kids to still have Thanksgiving together after you're gone, set it up so they are mad at somebody, and that person needs to be you, not their sibling. We've all seen this with families when the parents didn't make the hard decisions, and the children, no, they're the ones arguing about things the parents didn't clarify.
You know, the recipe for disaster is not making the decisions for your kids, like Erik just mentioned. If mom and dad say Joe is the executor, then Joe is the executor, and that's settled. That takes care of that. But when parents, give this game plan about, I'm not going to do much, and let the kids handle it, and the money's going to kind of do goofy things, let them figure it out. In-laws start getting involved. Lawyers get involved. Everybody starts hating each other, and the family never ends up having Thanksgiving dinner again together. I mean, it's really sad. This is a legacy nobody wants to leave behind, and it's completely preventable.
You have to outline who makes healthcare decisions, who handles finances, who is the executor. Some parents want to even it out among the kids. Others are strategic about matching the right child to the right responsibility. But the most important part is communicating that plan to your children while you're still here. That is one of the best gifts you can give your kids because they are going to be grieving during the hardest days of their lives. And the last thing they need to do is be fighting about money, okay? And one strategy parents often overlook is staged distributions for their children.
So instead of giving everything to a child at once when you pass, you can structure it as 1/3 at 25, 1/3 at 30, and 1/3 at 35. Some families prefer 30, 35, and 40, depending on the maturity level of their kids. This gives your children time to grow up, learn financial responsibility before receiving their full inheritance. If you're a knucklehead at 35, well, you might be a knucklehead the rest of your life. But I do not want to be judged by how we handle money at 19. And here's the bonus that a lot of people do not realize. Staged distributions also protect the inheritance if a child goes through a divorce during that same window.
And just know the ex-spouse can only divide assets that have already been distributed. So future distributions remain completely protected in the trust. That means your hard-earned money stays in your family where you intended it to go, not walking out the door with a stranger. We have seen too many families torn apart because an ex-spouse walked away with half the inheritance that grandparents and parents spent a lifetime building. You are not controlling the journey, you're just preventing disasters, like putting guardrails on a highway. And what I love about working with families is what I call the dominoes effect. And it happens in almost every single meeting.
Somebody comes in and they say they want to talk about the stock market or maybe their investments. The conversation usually leads to a discussion about taxes, specifically about how they're going to how much they're going to owe Uncle Sam on their IRA. Then that starts the conversation about where do you want the money to go when you're gone, and how do you want it to be structured? And who makes those decisions if something happens to you? Okay, so every single topic triggers the next one. Kind of like a line of dominoes. And before you know it, you've covered the investments, retirement planning, tax strategy, estate planning, all in one big comprehensive discussion.
And this is how planning is supposed to work. And it's exactly what happens at our workshops and in our office. It's like a football team watching game film, right? You start by looking at one play, and before you know it, you've spent 3 hours because, that play connects to the next play, and you realize the whole game plan, it all needs to be coordinated. It all needs to touch. It all needs to be seamless, right? It all needs to be prepared. Estate planning, tax planning, and investment management are not 3 separate conversations. They're one conversation that encompass everything.
And do not forget that every one of those 4 free offers is still on the table for every listener. You've got the free Morningstar report showing what you own and what you are actually paying. You've got the free cash flow analysis, free estate planning documents through Trust and Will, and a signed Tennessee football from Erik Ainge. You can call 865-415-2070 also for Jerry's Ask Me Anything in 20 minutes-ish. It could be longer. Phone call. There's truly no cost, no obligation, and no pressure. And that phone call might be the most valuable 20 minutes you spend all year.
All right, when we get back for our final segment, we're going to talk about asset protection trusts, the tool most people have never heard of that can protect your family from nursing home costs. We got a great story about a retired business owner named Calvin who found a way to protect 40 years of hard work. And we're going to give you the practical steps you can take starting today to get your estate plan in order. Don't go anywhere. It's the Organized Investor Show brought to you by Tennessee Wealth Management right here on News Talk 98.7.
If you're interested in a more personal learning experience, join us at the Organized Investor Workshops. Erik Ainge and the entire team will be there. The next event is scheduled for Tuesday, March 24th, 6 p.m. at Chesapeake's Restaurant on Parkside Drive in West Knoxville. Attendees will receive a 60-page workbook, a yummy meal, and learn how to get free estate planning documents through our partner Trust and Will. Seating is limited, so reserve your spot at theorganizedinvestor.com or call 865-415-2058.
Erik Ainge is the host of The Erik Ainge Show on 99.1 The Sports Animal, weekdays from 9 to noon. Erik, his wife Susan, Megan Hubbard, and Jerry Goodman are all affiliated with Tennessee Wealth Management and Prospera Financial Services in Dallas.
Welcome back to the Organized Investor Show. Again, hey, it's me, Erik Ainge, alongside my wife, Susan Ainge, Megan Hubbard, Jerry Goodman. Today's show's all been about estate planning, the conversation no one wants to have, but if you've been listening, you need to have this conversation. In segment 1, we covered the performance numbers, 36.3% net of fees versus the Dow, at 13%. Our DSIP strategy, the bargain opportunities approach, and a devastating story about a family that lost almost half their inheritance to Uncle Sam in taxes because they weren't prepared. In segment 2, we got into the ABCD framework for protecting your family, the Thanksgiving Day promise, a heartbreaking guardianship story, and the fact that 75% of trusts people think they have are actually unfunded and, worthless. Now let us bring it all home with some tools and stories that can really make a difference.
Now, one topic that comes up a lot when people start thinking about nursing home costs is the asset protection trust. And we want to give you an honest look at why most people should probably not go down that road. Nursing home costs run between $8,000 and $15,000 per month. That is over $100,000 a year, and the average stay is 3 to 3.5 years. So when families hear those numbers, they panic, and that's when elder law attorneys will often suggest an asset protection trust as a strategy to qualify for Medicaid. The idea is you move your house and your investments into an irrevocable trust. You wait out a 5-year look-back period, and then Medicaid treats you as if you don't have those assets. It might work in some cases, but it comes with a rather large legal fee, and there's absolutely no guarantee it was going to hold up.
Here's the first problem that nobody wants to talk about. Most of the people listening to this show simply have too much money to ever get approved for Medicaid in the first place, okay? Medicaid is a program designed for people who have very limited resources. And if you've built a decent nest egg over your career, basically you're nowhere close to qualifying even with a trust. So you could pay an elder law attorney, say $5,000, $10,000, maybe $15,000 to set up this strategy. And at the end of the day, you're probably still not going to qualify because your overall financial picture is simply too strong. And Medicare doesn't cover long-term care either, which catches a lot of people completely off guard. So this planning conversation is very important because asset protection is rarely the right answer.
The second big issue is that when you put your assets into an asset protection trust, you give up control. And that's not a small thing. These trusts are irrevocable, which means once you do it, you cannot undo it. You cannot change your mind, you cannot change the beneficiaries, and you cannot take the assets back. So if you need cash for an emergency, a home repair, a medical bill, you cannot just reach into the trust and pull it out because a trustee is now in charge, not you. For people who have spent their whole lives managing their own money and property, that loss of control can be a very rude awakening.
And here's something that I think we need to talk about, honestly, because I think it matters from a fairness standpoint. Nothing says fair like me, right, guys? Medicaid is funded by taxpayers, and every state has limited resources for people who genuinely cannot afford their own care. So the real question is, should the taxpayers in your state be responsible for paying your nursing home bills so you can leave a bigger estate to your children? No. That's like the team with a huge payroll asking the league to cover their expenses so they can save money for the next season. It just doesn't pass the fairness test. If you've worked hard and built something, the goal should be smart planning, not trying to game a system that was designed for people who truly need it.
And even for the smaller number of people where an asset protection trust might make sense, there are real limits on what you can actually put in there. You generally cannot put retirement accounts in an asset protection trust because that can trigger a taxable event, and you do not want to put your everyday checking account in there because you need that for daily living, right? You do not need to put your car in there because Medicaid already allows you to keep one vehicle, and you don't need to put assets in there that you might need to sell because once they're in there, you lose that ability to sell them. So after all those restrictions, the attorney fees, the 5-year waiting period, the loss of control, and no guarantee it's going to work, you can see why this is not the right strategy for most families. The better approach for the vast majority of people is comprehensive planning that coordinates your investments, your taxes, and your estate documents all together.
And that is exactly the kind of planning we do for every family we work with because there are so many better tools available. We've seen hundreds of families where they have a slip and fall, turns into dementia or Alzheimer's. The spouse ends up entering in a facility, Medicare runs out, and the bills start piling up. And the answer is not hiding assets in some irrevocable trust and hoping, Medicare does not, look too closely. The answer is building an investment engine that generates enough income and growth to handle whatever life may throw you down the road. So when your portfolio is performing at, let's say, 36.6%, that performance difference is what truly protects a family for, over a long-term period.
And for anyone who wants to learn about all of these tools in person, our free monthly Organized Investor Workshop at Chesapeake's Restaurant on Parkside Drive in Knoxville at 6 p.m. is the perfect place to start. Reservations are required since seating is limited, so visit the workshops page at theorganizedinvestor.com or call us at 865-415-2058 and save your spot. You will get that 60-page workbook, a wonderful meal, and a complete walkthrough of how to get estate planning documents from Trust and Will at absolutely no cost. One lucky person goes home with a full-size Tennessee football signed by my husband, Erik Ainge. Your hosts will be Erik and myself, Megan and Jared Hubbard, Jerry Goodman, and Amber DeLong, and we would love to see you there.
Come hang out with us. All right, now let's move on to this. Set Hut, let's share a story that really brings all this home. And it's one that stuck with every person on this team. Harold was a retired engineer, sharp as a tack, married to Ruth for 47 years. And they'd done everything right their whole lives, saved consistently, lived below their means, and built a very comfortable retirement. But when Harold had a minor stroke at age 72, Ruth called the office in a panic because she realized she could not access a single one of their accounts. Every brokerage account, every bank account, every IRA was in Harold's name only. And Ruth had no power of attorney, no health care directive, nothing. She was locked out of their own money while her husband was lying in a hospital bed. And that situation, no one should have to go through that.
Thankfully, Harold recovered well enough that they could get the documents in place. But Ruth told us later that those 3 weeks of not knowing whether she could pay the mortgage or the hospital bills were the most terrifying weeks of her life. We got them organized with powers of attorney, healthcare directives, updated beneficiary designations, and a proper plan that made sure Ruth would never be locked out again. Ruth looked at me and said, "We spent 47 years building this life together, but I almost lost access to all of it in one afternoon."
Well, and that's the simple part that people don't think about. Estate planning is not just about what happens after you're gone. It's about protecting your spouse while you're both still here. Harold and Ruth's situation is far more common than people realize, and it's completely preventable with documents that cost nothing. How much, guys?
Zero.
Free. Through our partnership with Trust and Will.
And here's the good news for every listener. You do not have to spend thousands of dollars at an attorney's office to get the basic documents in place. In fact, some attorneys actually have a conflict of interest when it comes to estate planning because they profit from probate fees on the back end. They benefit from the mess. And as one attorney put it, dead people do not complain. So the kids just absorb $50,000 in probate fees while they are grieving. That is why having an independent resource like Trust and Will is so valuable.
Through our partnership with Trust and Will, we have an unlimited access to their complete estate planning platform. Whether we help 23 people or 823 people over the course of a year, there's no additional cost to us, and there's never a cost to our listeners or our clients, ever. The documents include wills, trusts, powers of attorney, and healthcare directives, everything that most people need. The only possible cost would be if you decided that you wanted to use a revocable living trust. Then you'll need to pay to retitle those properties. But other than that, it's completely free. The documents are professionally drafted, legally valid in all 50 states, and use the same template approach that every attorney on the planet actually uses. 95% of people can use the Trust and Will documents, and they're perfectly fine.
Now, for someone with a more complicated situation, like let's say a blended family or maybe a significant business asset, well, we can introduce you to a local estate planning attorney that can help you for a very reasonable flat fee. And here's something to understand that's very important. Every attorney on the planet creates estate planning documents by editing existing templates, okay? Nobody writes these things from scratch anymore. They use word replacement. They'll put in your information into the standard document. Trust and Will has professionally created documents that are drafted by attorneys, legally valid in all 50 states, using that exact same template process through a much more efficient online process. So you can even upload your existing estate planning documents for an AI-powered review that gives you specific feedback on what you might want to update, and all that also is at no charge.
So not only are the documents free, but you can upload your existing documents, and Trust and Will use AI to analyze them and offer some suggestions. Again, this is free. Most people have never gotten a second opinion on their estate planning documents, and those documents may be 20 years old sitting in a drawer that does not reflect your life anymore. Let me add one more reason why estate planning and tax planning go hand in hand. When one spouse passes away, the surviving spouse hits what we call the widow's penalty. Their tax rate roughly doubles because they go from married filing jointly to single filing. So what we used to be taxed at 10% is now taxed at 20% or even more.
Then, when that surviving spouse passes, the children inherit the IRA during their highest earning years, and that's what we call the kiddos penalty. Combined tax rates can exceed 40% before you even count state taxes. A proper plan can get that money out during your lifetime at 10 or 15% instead. We're talking about potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars staying in your family instead of going to Uncle Sam, and that's all due to planning, and that can change a legacy.
So let me remind everyone one more time about those 4 get one frees that are available to every single listener. You've got the free Morningstar report on your investments, free retirement cash flow analysis, free estate planning documents through Trust and Will, and a signed football from Erik. The performance numbers are 36.3% versus the Dow at 13% for 2025, with consistent outperformance over 3, 5, and 7 years using the DSIP dividend growth strategy. I want you to call Jerry, my dad, at 865-415-2070 and for his Ask Me Anything in 20 minutes phone call. You should ask him how to cook corned beef. See what recipe he gives you on that. No cost, no obligation, no strings attached, and it might be the most important call you make this year.
If you take one thing away from today's show, let it be this. The worst time to figure out your estate plan is when you actually need it. But then it's too late for powers of attorney, too late for IRA planning, too late to save your family from unnecessary taxes and thousands of dollars in legal costs. The best time to plan was 10 years ago. The second best time is right now, today, this week, online, theorganizedinvestor.com. You're not going to send a football team on the field without a game plan. You should not send your family into the future without one either. Come to our workshop, call Jerry, visit the website, do something this week. Your family will thank you 20 years from now.
So the conversation's free, the documents are free, the peace of mind is priceless. And remember, organizing your investments is the single most important thing you can do to materially improve your long-term future. The estate planning, tax planning, retirement planning, it all matters, but it's not going to change things as much as your investments can. And if the investment engine is not performing very well, everything else is really just like rearranging the deck chairs. Our performance numbers speak for themselves, and we have the 7-year track record to prove this is not just a one-time wonder.
We work with about 240 families with about 750 accounts, and some of those relationships go back over 40 years. That kind of trust is not built overnight. It is earned one family at a time. So come talk to us. Let us show you what we can do for your family. We have made it so easy to take the first step. You can visit us at theorganizedinvestor.com, call us at 865-415-2070, or come to our next free workshop at Chesapeake's.
Your family deserves a plan, and you deserve to know exactly where you stand. Don't let another day go by without taking the first step, because the people who you love are counting on it. Folks, today's show is all about the conversation no one wants to have, but I hope we showed you that it doesn't have to be scary and it doesn't have to be expensive. In fact, with us, Jerry, it could be what? No.
Free.
The estate planning documents are free through Trust and Will. The Morningstar Report is free. The retirement and cash flow analysis free. Yes, the football free as well. Pretty valuable, I must say.
Exactly.
Estate planning is not just what happens when you're gone. It's about protecting your family while you're still here, because those powers of attorney, those healthcare directives, they work while you're alive. All right. Estate planning is the playbook, and everyone needs to know, not just the head coach. In my career, the best teams I played with were the ones where every single player knew the plan, not just the quarterback. Your family, it's the same way, guys. Everybody needs to be on the same page. You can get it done, protect the ones you love, and make sure your legacy lasts longer than one generation. Thank you for spending part of your weekend with us. Again, it's me, Ainge, right here on the Organized Investor Show with our wonderful team. I hope you have a fantastic week ahead, everybody. And we'll see you here next week.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of the Organized Investor or Tennessee Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Erik Ainge is the host of The Erik Ainge Show on 99.1 The Sports Animal weekdays from 9 to noon. Erik, his wife Susan, Megan Hubbard, and Jerry Goodman are all affiliated with Tennessee Wealth Management in Knoxville and Prospera Financial Services in Dallas, Texas. Opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and are not intended as investment advice or solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning or before making any investment decision. And please consult legal or tax professionals for specific information regarding your individual situation. Brokerage and advisory services are provided by Tennessee Wealth Management through Prospera Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. The Organized Investor is a brand name operated by Tennessee Wealth Management for educational platform purposes.
Want to meet the team from the Organized Investor in person? Join us at a free Organized Investor workshop. You'll get a 60-page workbook, a great meal, and learn how to get free estate planning documents through our partner Trust and Will. Our next workshop is Tuesday, March 24th at 6 p.m. at Chesapeake's Restaurant on Parkside Drive in West Knoxville. There's no cost or obligation to attend. However, seating is limited. So reserve your spot at theorganizedinvestor.com or call 865-415-2058.
That's 865-415-2058.